I'd like to walk you through the architectural process that you can expect to get when working with our office. To start off, I'd like to do a little survey of the clients to find out what their goals and dreams are for their project. What kind of spaces you need, how many levels are you thinking? Um, I'd like to know how you like to entertain and what your lifestyle's like and what brings you joy and all those good things so that we could design a home that will support all of those wonderful things that make you you. Now, if this is a renovation project, I'll ask you for two lists. One is what are the shortcomings or annoyances of your current living situation. And then the second list is what are the goals for and wish list for the new spaces. Now, there's a tool I've been referring clients to online. It's called house.com. It's a wonderful website that has thousands and thousands of photographs from various new home constructions and renovation projects. And it's organized by spaces. So I will ask you to search on House room by room. And for example, I may say, well, go into kitchens, and I want you to look at a variety of photographs. And when you find something in a photograph that really resonates with you, I want you to save it. And so you hit the save button, and a window comes down, and you can type in what it is about this particular photo that caught your attention. So, for example, this one has a second oven in the end of the island. And so I'll ask you to go room by room through this to save all of these great inspirations. And you will create what House calls idea books. So you hit this button and you'll type in the name of your project or the name of the room. And that's where all of these different ideas are going to stay. Now, when you set up your account on House, if you click this button here in the upper right corner, you will get a menu where you can find all of these saved idea books of yours for your project. And then you can go in and click on that particular project, and it'll show you all of your saved photos and comments. And then you can click on the invite button, which will send me an email giving me access to all of these saved images and all of your comments. And basically you're sharing with me all of your likes, and then it just allows me to hit the bullseye of the target a lot sooner and a lot more efficiently, knowing what things really get you excited. All right, the next step in the process is we have to kind of do our due diligence and make sure we understand what all the restrictions, parameters are for the municipality's zoning and building codes. So we're looking to define the boundaries of your project. We'll ask for a plat of survey. If it's a vacant lot, obviously no structures will be on it. If we're doing a renovation project, it'll show us the footprint of the existing structures, which will allow us to look up setbacks and such, and we will complete our own little zoning analysis form. So we will flesh out from the zoning ordinance what the various front, side, and rear yard setbacks are, what any building height limitations there are, how many units per lot you're allowed to construct on the property if you're thinking of doing a multi-unit structure. Also the floor area ratio, which is how the municipality controls density in certain neighborhoods. So that will tell us, based on the square footage of your lot, how many square feet of new house or addition you're allowed to add to the property before we hit the cap. And then there'll be some information on accessory structures as well. So we'll give you a nice little report and then turn that into a graphic over your existing plat of survey. If required, we may also, especially on renovation projects, do a Freedom of Information Act with the municipality to see what other permits were pulled on your particular property over the years before you purchased it, to make sure we don't have any red flags that may come up as surprises that you have to deal with now that you are the current building owner. So for, again, renovation projects, then our next step will be to come over to the property and field measure it accurately. And we will produce a set of as-built drawings that will have all the existing floor plans, depending on how many levels of home there is. We will document the existing mechanical system and equipment, the existing electrical system, and the existing plumbing system. We'll also, if you're going to add on to the structure, measure the exterior elevation so that we can show the existing conditions and then show you how we're going to add to that existing situation. And what I like to say is, once we have a good set of as-builds, we have a good x-ray of the patient that we're going to work on. So then the next step is to take all of your good goals and wishes for your project and start to sketch on what opportunities do we have to meet those goals. So we'll usually come back to you with a series of design sketches. And for example, the first scheme A will probably show the house in this particular project built into or nestled into the hillside of the property. And we are proposing to put the garage here to the northwest and have a deck to the southwest. And there's an existing septic system and how the new home is avoiding that area. And then we'll also do another scheme to say, well, what if we put the house down the hillside so it's more on the flat part of the site? We're going to rotate the garage slightly and connect it to the home with a trellis. And then I always like to have a good understanding of where the winter sun is traveling and the summer sun is traveling, because this affects how natural light comes into the various spaces of your home. And we'll usually give priority to the day spaces, getting the best sunlight, and perhaps bedrooms and utility and laundry and those kind of spaces that don't require as much sunlight to the north. And most likely we'll have a handful of schemes. Here's yet another one, this one turning the house on the east-west axis to maximize solar gain in the windows. And if we're going to do photovoltaics on the roof, this would maximize that. So we're going to give you the pros and cons to each of these plan layouts. Now we'll do the same in section view. Here's a section showing a two-story home nestled into the hill on the property. We'll tell you the pros and cons. We'll show the sun angles for the summer and the winter and how those will be perceived inside the house. We'll do another study with looking at a large grand deck off of the first floor, and in this scheme we're forgetting a lower level. Pointing out that if you have a deck that's up high, you're going to have many steps to get down to grade. In some cases that's an advantage, in other cases it's disadvantage. It just depends on how it strikes you. And then yet a third scheme C here that is doing a two-story home off of the hill and with a grand deck on the lower level, where now it's only 2 steps to get from deck to grade. So each of these options have different pros and cons, and we will get your feedback upon presenting these. So you might say, hey, Mark, we actually really like the kitchen and library from Scheme A that you showed us. We like some of the funky flooring shapes and the garden room you presented in Scheme B. And we really love the outdoor deck and the garage of Scheme C. So my job is to take all of these favorite likes and put them together to make our final design solution for your project. Now, once we've done the initial schematic design, I like to jump right into the costs. Um, 9 out of 10 times, most decisions as to what's in the project and what's out of the projects comes down to cost and your budget. So it makes a lot of sense to get into some preliminary numbers now so that when we get to the more expensive part of the architectural process, doing the detailed construction drawings, we're not wasting your time and money in detailing something that's going to ultimately come back over budget. So I like to get a handle, or shall we say a litmus test, up front now, early in the process, so that we don't go further until we've done our due diligence. So we will typically call in a builder. Could be someone you know, it could be someone we know, and we'll ask them to do a cost analysis, budgeting items for each trade and material allowances to get us in the ballpark of where the current design is going to fall. And then if we're under budget, great, we'll keep marching forward. But if we're over budget, then we're going to back up a second and do one of a couple of things. We're either going to shrink the scope of work or shrink the square footage of the home to lower construction costs. Or another trick is to phase the construction. So maybe we will construct 75 or 80% of the master game plan now, and then when funds become available down the road, we'll finish off that remaining 20%. And that could look like not finishing a bathroom or two, or waiting to build a garage, or a 3-season porch, or the outdoor deck and landscaping, just holding off on some of those extras, shall we say, but getting the bulk of the home completed so that you're living in it quite comfortably. So once we pass the cost analysis phase, then we will go in confidence into design development. And here's where we're going to start going from sketch to more hard-lined architectural drawings. We're going to go from ideas to actual materials, thicknesses, forms, etc. And we'll do that in a number of ways. We will do computer-generated rendering of the outside of the home, showing selected materials and giving you options for colors and textures. Or we might do the old school way of building a cardboard model, so you can actually take the roof off and look inside. And our goal as doing good architectural service for you is to make sure that we're communicating to you what the two-dimensional drawings are going to mean in 3 dimensions, so that you understand what you're getting now, so that we have an opportunity to make changes and tweaks to get everything 100% perfect for you, rather than you being surprised after construction starting, going, oh, I didn't know it was going to look like that. I'm not crazy about that. So that is our job to you, is to make sure you understand everything the architectural drawings are suggesting. And then another trick we'll use is we will draw up interior elevations of all the various rooms that have either cabinetry, tile work, plumbing fixtures, grab bars, other custom millwork, so that we can start to take an initial look at these areas, share them with you, get your feedback, go back and forth until we make tweaks and adjustments so that everything is just to your satisfaction. And then we can also do computer-generated interiors perspectives showing you what various parts of the home are going to look like. Here's a built-in kitchen buffet area with bench seating, and then the large kitchen island, sink location, windows, appliances. And this really gives you a great sense of what a space is going to feel like and function like while we're still in the design phase, and you can still make changes inexpensively. Then we'll also start to lay out some of the more technical aspects of the project. We'll do preliminary ductwork layout and mechanical system design, and if needed, we'll share that with a mechanical engineer for specifying equipment. We'll do the same with electrical. We'll do preliminary outlet locations, switch locations, and lighting types and locations, and review those with you, make any changes needed at this early stage before we get into the final documentation. And then we'll also do the same for structural framing and the foundation. All right, so once we're done developing the design with you and everyone's happy with where things are located and sizes and shapes, we will then have the confidence to move into the lion's share of the architectural process, which is the construction documents. And this is just a quick overview of what these typically look like. So there's usually a cover page with an index, a chart with a variety of the different wall assemblies being used in the project, a responsibilities matrix you see in the middle of the sheet here, which really defines who's responsible for what. So who's buying the material, who's installing the material. Sometimes homeowners like to buy a lot of their own finished plumbing fixtures and tiles, etc. And so this just kind of gets rid of any gray zone as to who's responsible for what when we make this chart. There will also be a sheet showing the site and the new home location on the site, required setbacks. There'll be schedules documenting each and every window, each and every door, and all the details and minutia in terms of ordering those materials. Hardware schedule for the doors, a millwork schedule, appliance schedule, the final appliances you picked, what type of energy rough-in they require, and the electrical loads that they need to achieve, and any other details. We'll have floor plans of each of the levels of the home with dimensions for laying out everything. We'll have a roof plan showing materials and drainage and downspouts and gutters and all that good stuff. Then we'll have views of all four sides of the outside of the home, showing all the window locations, door locations, what all the finished materials are and where they are, with keynotes describing all of these things, and then major construction notes as to the heights of the first floor, second floor, the roof deck, etc. Then we'll have a series of wall sections, which really gets into the details of how the materials are going to be installed and assembled and what's wrapping what to keep things water and airtight. How the framing is going to be installed, any special structural details, foundation details, drainage details. It all happens on these sheets. Again, we'll show the next level of refinement for the interior elevations, showing tile locations, doors and windows, mirrors, fireplaces, little nooks in the shower and display nooks. All of those good items are documented here. Then we'll have a page that'll have a variety of specifications for the quality of the drywall material purchased, quality of the drywall installation technique that we're asking for, same for painting, finish materials, framing. All the different trades have specific notes here to make sure that you're getting the best quality in material and labor installation practices. And then we'll have polished final electrical drawings showing what switches are operating what lights and what those lights are. We'll have mechanical plans showing the final furnace and compressor locations in and outside of the house, how the ductwork's running from the furnace to feed various rooms and capture exhaust air. And then we'll have, required by the municipality, usually a plumbing diagram showing the layout of the supply pipes on your right and the waste and vent lines on your left, with a plumbing fixture schedule for each plumbing item in the project. And then structural work, so the concrete for the footings and foundation walls with all those dimensioned properly. Framing plans describing the size of each of the framing members, their spans, their depths, their thicknesses. Beam schedules, metal connector schedules, headers and lintels, and that rounds out the construction documents. Once those are done, we'll move into the last phase of the architectural process. We will help you with permitting the project. A lot of that is now done online these days with portals, so we will upload the drawings, we'll fill out all the required forms. And then if we know you're going to be competitively bidding the project, we will prepare drawings for 1, 2, 3, 4 general contractors, and we will assist then in helping you compare the proposals that come back from the GCs and help you understand the pros and cons of each of the proposals and help you determine which company you want to move forward with. Now, another item I want to touch on is the difference in working with a construction manager versus working with a general contractor. They're basically doing very similar scopes of work for you, but the contracts and the bookkeeping is done a little bit differently between the two, and I just want you to be aware of the choices between going with a CM or a GC. So CMs are usually hired based on referral and experience and reputation. Similar to GCs, but the GCs are typically going to go through a competitive bidding process before being awarded the job. Now, a construction manager usually starts his work with the team of architect and homeowner earlier in the architectural process, which is nice because it's really great to have their experience with construction material and labor on board early to provide any constructive comments as we go through the design portions of this process. Whereas a general contractor is typically coming in after the architectural process is completed. That's not always the case, but in general that seems to be how it works out. Now, the contract is usually between the homeowner and all of the subcontractors directly in a construction management relationship, whereas in a general contractor relationship, that contract's between you, the homeowner, and the GC directly, and the GC has the contracts between himself and all the subcontractors, plumbers, carpenters, tile setters, etc. Now, the difference here is that typically, if there are savings to be had with a construction manager relationship, those savings usually end up staying in your checking account. With a general contractor, it's a little more difficult to get those savings because the contract's between the GC and the sub directly, and if there are savings, many times it ends up staying with the GC's monies. And then in terms of bookkeeping, when you work with a construction manager, it's usually an open book policy. That means the CM is going to get multiple bids from 2 or 3 carpenters, 2 or 3 plumbers, 2 or 3 electricians, and share all those bids with you, and together you will pick the winners in all those subcontractor categories. Whereas with the GC, many times they're just calling up the guy they always like to work with, which can be fine, but sometimes you lose out on the multiple bids at the subcontractor level with a GC relationship. And then finally, fees. A CM is usually charging you a percentage of the cost of construction. So it seems to be a very fair relationship. If you decide to add on more scope of work, then there'll be a larger construction cost, and then the CM will just make slightly more money based on the additional scope of work that was added. With the GC, it's typically done as a lump sum. So sometimes subtle changes in scopes of work may not always result in seeing the change in the payout requests to the homeowner. Sometimes it does, but just to give a summary of some of the nuances between the different relationships between working with these two entities to build your project, this gives you a little bit of a heads up. All right, and then I have some clients who will take our architectural drawings and then just run forward with those on their own, and they will just work with a general contractor and not really have us involved too much in the construction process. And then I have other clients who want to have us stay on the team as we go forward, and we can provide construction administration services to you, the homeowner. So that means we'll do an overview of the payouts that are submitted to you, whether it's every 2 weeks or every month from the general contractor for a payment request, and we will help oversee that all the waivers from the subs get completed and filed for you, so you have peace of mind that no liens are going to come your way based on this current payment. We will also visit the site regularly to witness the material installations. That could be once a week, it could be once every 2 weeks. It's something we'll decide together, and we're mainly verifying that all the work is going according to the plans. Things aren't being left out, corners are not being cut on your behalf. So we'll be watching for those types of things. And then we'll also be there to assist in any troubleshooting that happens. It always seems to come up during construction work. And then we will also help create punch lists and such, and document issues that need to be fixed, so that at the end of the day you're moving into a 100% completed home. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out at this email address or phone number. You can see our work at the 2 websites below. And there you have it. You now have a good sense of what to expect going through the architectural process with us.